You think you know yourself. You've read the books, done the work, maybe even been to therapy. But there are four figures living inside you right now, and they are not waiting for your permission. They have been there since you were a child, shaped by every wound you never processed, every rage you swallowed, every desire you buried because you were told it was wrong. Carl Jung called them archetypes. Most people know the hero, the wise man, the good ones, but those aren't what we're here for today. Today we go into the shadow, the four dark archetypes that live inside every man, not as metaphors but as active psychological forces operating beneath your conscious mind, driving your decisions, destroying your relationships, sabotaging your potential. You won't find this in a self-help book, because this isn't self-help, this is self-reckoning. Before we name these archetypes, you need to understand what Jung meant by the shadow. The shadow is not evil. That's the first misunderstanding. The shadow is everything you were told to hide: your aggression, your hunger, your grief, your need for power, your sexuality, your contempt, your fear. When you were young, the world gave you a message, usually without words. Some emotions were acceptable, others were not. And the parts of you that didn't fit the acceptable version, you buried them. You didn't destroy them. That's impossible. You simply pushed them underground. And underground they grew. Jung believed that the shadow, when left unexamined, doesn't disappear. It shapes your behavior from below the surface. You project it onto others. You act it out in ways you don't understand. You wake up one day and realize you've spent 20 years running from a version of yourself you never had the courage to face. The four archetypes we're exploring today are not abstract. They are psychological patterns. Recognizable, familiar. You will see yourself in them. That recognition, that moment of uncomfortable clarity, is the beginning of something most men never reach. I call this framework the Shadow Quartet. Four archetypes, four wounds, four unconscious forces that operate inside every man, distorted versions of what could be powerful, integrated aspects of the self. They are the Tyrant, distorted power; the Addict, distorted desire; the Coward, distorted protection; the Exile, distorted identity. Each one has a shadow expression, the version that runs your life when you're not paying attention. And each one has an integrated expression, the version that becomes a source of genuine strength when you face it directly. We will go through all four, and at each one, I want you to do something most people refuse to do. Look.
If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support.
The first dark archetype is the Tyrant. He is the distorted version of the king, the masculine principle of order, structure and authority. In his integrated form, a man with king energy creates stability. He leads with calm, he protects without controlling. He sets boundaries from a place of inner certainty, not fear. But in his shadow form, as the Tyrant, something else emerges. Control, rage, dominance, the need to make others smaller so he can feel larger. You've seen the Tyrant, maybe in a boss who makes every conversation about power, a father who could never be wrong, a man who cannot tolerate being questioned, not because he is confident, but because deep beneath the surface he is terrified. Here is what most people miss about the Tyrant. He is almost always a wounded child wearing armor. Consider this. Marcus is 38. Successful by every external measure. He runs a company, has the house, the respect, but every relationship he's ever had has ended the same way, with the other person describing him as impossible. His ex-wife said he suffocated her. His business partner left after 2 years. His employees fear him. Marcus doesn't see himself as a tyrant. He sees himself as someone with high standards, someone who simply refuses to accept mediocrity. But what Marcus cannot see, what he has never been willing to see, is that beneath the control is panic. The tyrant was born the day Marcus learned that love was conditional, that he had to perform to be safe, and somewhere in his psyche, that child never stopped performing. The armor became the man. The tyrant emerges in you when you shame others to feel superior, when you dominate conversations, when you cannot tolerate losing, even in small things, when your anger arrives faster than your reason. Ask yourself, where in your life do you need to be right more than you need to be honest? That is the tyrant speaking. The second dark archetype is the addict. He is the distorted version of the lover, the masculine principle of passion, beauty, connection, and aliveness. In his integrated form, lover energy makes a man deeply present, sensual, creative, capable of genuine intimacy. He feels things fully, he is moved by life. But the addict is what happens to lover energy when a man is too afraid or has never been taught to sit with pain. The addict does not just mean substance dependency, that is one expression. The addict is the pattern of escaping into pleasure to avoid presence. Pornography, alcohol, binge-watching, overworking, compulsive phone use, gambling, even spirituality, the endless consumption of content about growth without ever actually changing. All of it serves the same function, avoidance. There is a man, call him Daniel, who meditates every morning, has a perfect morning routine, follows 12 accounts about stoicism and discipline. He talks constantly about self-improvement. But Daniel hasn't finished anything he's started in 3 years. He is addicted to the feeling of beginning, to the dopamine of potential. The moment something requires sustained discomfort, he pivots. New course, new book, new system. Daniel believes he is on a path of growth. What he is actually doing is using self-improvement as an escape from the one thing he fears most, himself. The addict in you is not weak. He is in pain. He is reaching desperately for something to fill a space that was never filled, maybe a father who was absent, maybe love that was earned, never given, maybe a wound so old you've forgotten it exists. But the addict's tragedy is this: the more you feed him, the louder the emptiness becomes. The thing he runs from is the only thing that can heal him, and that thing is sustained, conscious presence with discomfort. Stop. Right now. I want you to do something. It will take 60 seconds. It requires honesty. Think of a person, real in your life, who genuinely irritates you. Someone whose behavior bothers you at a level that feels disproportionate. Got them? Now ask yourself this question, and do not answer quickly. What is the quality in them that disturbs me most? Name it, out loud or in your mind. Be specific. Now, and this is the part most people skip, ask, where does that quality exist in me? Not do I have it, you have it. The question is where. Jung called this projection. We see in others what we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. The qualities that trigger us most intensely are almost always exiled parts of our own psyche. The man who is infuriated by arrogance may be suppressing his own hunger for recognition. The man who despises weakness in others may be terrified of his own vulnerability. This is not comfortable. It is not supposed to be. Sit with it for 10 seconds. Let the discomfort be there. That discomfort is the shadow introducing itself. The third dark archetype is the coward. He is the distorted version of the warrior, the masculine principle of courage, action, discipline, and boundary. In his integrated form, warrior energy makes a man decisive, purposeful, capable of enduring pain in service of something meaningful. But the coward is what the warrior becomes when a man has been defeated by failure, by humiliation, by the terror of trying again. The coward does not look like what you imagine. He doesn't cower in corners. He is sophisticated, intelligent even. He has elaborate justifications for his inaction. He is excellent at waiting for the right moment, which never arrives. He frames his avoidance as patience, his fear as wisdom, his paralysis as discernment. He is the man who has been writing the same business plan for 4 years, who stays in the job he despises because leaving feels more frightening than decaying slowly, who knows exactly what he needs to say to his father and hasn't said it in a decade. Your mind will say, "I'm just being realistic. I've seen what happens when people rush into things." That is the coward, giving himself a title he hasn't earned. There is a difference between measured deliberation and chronic avoidance. And somewhere inside you, you already know which one you're doing. The coward is not a character flaw. He is a survival strategy that calcified. Once it made sense. You were hurt by risk, by exposure, by the cost of being seen and judged. So you built a wall around your ambitions. You called it strategy, called it patience, called it not needing external validation. But walls don't just keep danger out, they keep life out. The warrior integrated is not fearless. He is afraid and moves anyway. He acts in the direction of meaning, even when the outcome is uncertain. The coward remains frozen at the altar of certainty, which never comes. The fourth dark archetype is the exile. He is the most painful of the four. He is the distorted version of the magician, the masculine principle of awareness, transformation, initiation, and depth. In his integrated form, magician energy makes a man internally rich, psychologically aware, capable of sitting with complexity, comfortable with the unknown. The exile is what happens when a man has been cut off from his own inner world, not by others but by himself. He is the man who does not know what he feels, genuinely does not know, not because he lacks intelligence, but because he learned long ago that feeling was dangerous. Feeling was weakness. Feeling meant losing control, and losing control meant getting hurt. So he stopped. He numbed the interior. He became functional, productive, perhaps even impressive to others, but internally vacant. The exile does not feel lonely. He feels nothing, which is its own kind of devastation. Consider a man in his late 30s. Let's call him Thomas. From the outside, Thomas has built a life, career, family. He is dependable, steady, responsible. His wife complains that she never knows what he's thinking. His children sense something unreachable in him. His friends would call him solid, but admit they don't really know him. Thomas has never had a conversation, not once in his adult life, where he spoke openly about what he fears, what he grieves, what he wants beyond what he's supposed to want. He cannot, not because he is dishonest, but because he exiled those parts of himself so early and so thoroughly that he has almost no access to them. The exile is the archetype of internal disconnection, of a man who lives entirely on the surface of his own life. And the tragedy is that the magician, his integrated counterpart, is one of the most powerful forces available to a man. The capacity for genuine self-awareness, for transformation, for making meaning from suffering. But it requires exactly what the exile has spent his life avoiding, going in. Let's ground this. The Shadow Quartet. 4 archetypes, 4 distortions. The Tyrant, distorted power, control that masks fear. Dominance that hides a wound. The Addict, distorted desire, pleasure used as escape, consumption instead of presence. The Coward, distorted protection, avoidance dressed as wisdom, paralysis waiting for a certainty that never comes. The Exile, distorted awareness, a man cut off from his own interior, functional, empty. Every man carries all 4, not just one. The question is which one is loudest, and whether you are willing to listen to what it's actually saying beneath the noise. Knowledge alone changes nothing. You can understand every archetype I've described and still wake up tomorrow acting from the Tyrant, still reaching for the Addict's escape, still hearing the Coward's justifications. So here is the system. I call it the Shadow Protocol. It is an if-then rule, followed by a 3-minute practice. The rule is this: if I notice a reaction in myself that is stronger than the situation seems to warrant, then I pause before acting and I ask one question, just one: which archetype is speaking right now? Not to judge it, not to suppress it, to name it. Jung believed that naming a thing strips it of its unconscious power. The shadow operates most destructively when it remains unseen. The moment you bring it into conscious awareness, you have a choice. Before that moment, you have none. Here is the 3-minute protocol. Do this when you feel activated, when you're about to send the angry message, make the impulsive decision, or disappear into your phone at 2 in the morning. Minute 1. Stop moving. Sit or stand still. 3 slow breaths, not to calm down, but to create space between stimulus and response. Minute 2. Name what you're feeling beneath the surface reaction, not the story, not what happened, what you feel. Angry is not enough. Go deeper. Humiliated, afraid, invisible, ashamed. Find the actual word. Minute 3. Ask, what does this feeling want me to believe about myself right now? And is that belief true? Or is it an old wound speaking with present-day urgency? You'll feel the urge to skip this. You'll tell yourself you don't have time, that you'll do it later, that the situation is different. The shadow loves urgency. Urgency is its favorite disguise. 3 minutes. That is the entire protocol. Over time, the gap between trigger and response grows. That gap is where identity lives. That gap is where a man becomes someone other than his wounds. Jung did not believe the goal was to destroy the shadow. He believed the goal was integration, not to eliminate the tyrant, but to reclaim the power he carries, the capacity for genuine authority and boundaries without the fear driving it. Not to kill the addict, but to reclaim the lover's gift, the ability to be fully present, fully alive, without using pleasure to run from pain. Not to silence the coward, but to recover the warrior's courage, the willingness to act in the face of uncertainty without waiting for a guarantee that will never come. Not to abandon the exile, but to bring him home, to reawaken the magician's awareness without fear of what you'll find in your own depths. This is the work. Not self-optimization, not peak performance, not a better morning routine. The work is becoming whole. A man who has faced his shadow is not a man without darkness. He is a man who has taken back the power he spent his life hiding from. That man is harder to manipulate, harder to destabilize. He knows what he's capable of, all of it, and he chooses with intention rather than compulsion. That is what Jung pointed toward. Not the elimination of the dark, the conscious integration of it. The shadow quartet lives in you. The tyrant, the addict, the coward, the exile. They are not your enemies. They are the parts of you that have been waiting, sometimes for decades, for you to stop running and finally turn around. Most men will watch this and see themselves clearly for about 4 minutes. Then the armor goes back on. If you are not most men, leave a comment. 1 word. Which archetype is loudest in you right now? The tyrant, the addict, the coward, the exile. 1 word. That's all. And if you're ready to go deeper into the mechanics of the shadow, the Jungian process of integration, and what it actually takes to stop being run by the parts of yourself you've never faced, you already know where to find the next video. The work doesn't end here, it starts here.